of New Jersey. That would be his only elected office before he became President of the United States. Wilson was a thoughtful, religious man, an avid golfer. He enjoyed movies and vaudeville shows. Publicly, he was perceived as a human machine, cold and academically methodical about his decision-making.
Privately, at home, he could be quite charming, rather funny. He liked to sing songs from Broadway shows at that time. But that was very much the private Wilson. Public Wilson seemed to often to most people rather cold. He was not a person people often warmed up to.
Wilson's most important political asset was his skill with the spoken word, and he wasn't afraid to use it. He was the first president since John Adams to deliver his State of the Union messages to Congress in person. When he became president, Wilson tried to bring a bit of the ivory tower to the Oval Office.
Wilson was a collegial leader. He's been a college person, if that makes sense. They said in cabinet meetings he wasn't the boss. It was more like the first among equals, so they would discuss things very freely.
In his first term, Wilson focused on fulfilling the progressive domestic agenda he called the New Freedom. One of his enduring contributions was to create the Federal Reserve to manage the U.S. currency system.
It was one of the remarkable successes of Wilson's administration. It has persisted since 1913, and it has done a remarkably good job of maintaining the stability of the American currency.
In the summer of 1914, Woodrow Wilson faced two great crises. Just as the guns of August signaled the start of World War I in Europe, the president's wife, Ellen, died of a kidney ailment.
Ellen Wilson died, and Wilson was heard to whisper, "My God, what am I going to do?"
As he privately mourned his wife, Wilson was faced with an increasingly difficult public dilemma. Most Americans wanted nothing to do with the Great War in Europe, so Wilson pledged neutrality. But that was problematic, especially with German submarines targeting British passenger ships that often carried American civilians across the Atlantic. In one incident, the sinking of the Lusitania in 1915, 128 Americans were killed.
Despite public outrage over the Lusitania, most Americans wanted Wilson to keep his head, which he did, and save him from Europe's awful mess. They simply did not think that this was America's fight.
In 1915, 17 months after his wife died, Wilson remarried. His bride was a Washington widow named Edith Bolling Galt. The following year, he was narrowly re-elected as president, making him the first Democratic incumbent to win re-election since Andrew Jackson in 1832. With Germany declaring early in 1917 that American shipping would no longer be spared the wrath of submarine warfare, it would be a challenging second term for the domestic-minded president.
Wilson remarked to a friend, "It would be an irony of fate if my administration were consumed by foreign affairs." Well, it was, of course, a tragic and of course, that is exactly what happened by the administration.
On April 2nd, 1917, Wilson asked Congress for a declaration of war against Germany. In this famous war message, he minted what would become an enduring theme in American foreign policy: the world must be made safe for democracy.
I should bring peace and safety to all nations and make the world itself at last free. That's how I ended the speech. It was really one of the great speeches in American history.